Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the Ground and Pound podcast, the show where, as always, we're hitting you with them elbows of knowledge. And here to break down arguably the worst card in a very long time over in the UFC is my co-host, Carlos. What's happening, Carlos?
Absolutely nothing, brother.
And a very disappointed UFC fan base this week over at UFC Atlanta. Wasn't what we were hoping for. And as always, Carlos and I are going to start off in the early prelims, head all the way to the main event, giving our thoughts, our feelings on the whole entire fight card, and kicking things off, as we mentioned, not the best fight card, but kicking the fight card off was Jamey Horth taking on Vanessa Demopoulos. Jamey Horth getting it done here. Carlos and I both picking her. She did. I thought she was going to implement a little bit more grappling, really just try and get this fight up against the fence and really just bully her using her size. But ultimately, the striking was what got it done. She looked great. She looked like she hit a lot harder than Vanessa Demopoulos anticipated. Obviously, her moving up in weight on short notice didn't do her any favors here. My ex-wife goes from sleeping on the couch to sleeping on the street. But two good picks here for Carlos and I for Jamey Horth, getting it done with her striking, the size advantage, and the overall power here. And I would argue this is probably maybe even one of the better fights on the card. That just goes to show how bad this fight card was. But Carlos, what do you think of the performance? What do you think of the fight? And overall, did you expect what we saw?
Yeah, I expected what we saw. I thought Horth was going to come out and do exactly what she did. I didn't really expect her to do any grappling because that seemed to be the only way that Demopoulos had a chance to stay in the fight. But even if it went to the ground, I don't think Demopoulos could have controlled her enough to get the submission. So keeping it on the feet, beating her up at distance, I thought that was a great way to start the fight night.
Yeah, absolutely. Keeping it safe on the feet was definitely the game plan for her. She looked good doing it, but a boring, pretty much a boring fight. And that's pretty much how this fight went on. And actually, this was arguably, I would say, now thinking about it, this is actually probably one of the better fights. Phil Rowe with the comeback knockout win in the third round here against Ange Loosa. Loosa was up on the scorecards 2-0. The second round was fairly close. I know that Ange Loosa was able to take the first with his grappling and kind of throwing the looping right hand over the top, which caught Phil Rowe in the first round. And like I said on the breakdown, I know Carlos and I were split on this one. He picked Phil Rowe, rightfully so, and I picked Ange Loosa. This one was frustrating for me purely because Ange Loosa looked like the right pick until the third round. He got dog walked in the third. Phil Rowe's pressure and length and just ability to kind of grit down and bite on his mouthpiece was able to what got it done. And one of the nicest displays of violence I've seen in a long time. You can see from the image on the left-hand side here of your screen, Phil Rowe just basically posturing on the face with his left hand and just teeing off, throwing right hand after right hand. I'm pretty sure if he'd have just let go with his left hand, Ange Loosa probably would have fell about 3 or 4 shots before that. It was kind of like he was holding him up, but good comeback win for Phil Rowe, and I got to give him credit. We talk a lot about in MMA about guys have to, they're down 2 rounds, they have to grit down on their mouthpiece and come out in the third round and get a knockout. He did exactly that. Can't fault him for that, but a little bit disappointing from my pick perspective that Ange Loosa wasn't able to get it done after being up 2-0. But like I said on the breakdown, I didn't trust either guy. Carlos, what did you think of your pick? What did you think of the Fresh Prince getting it done here? And what did you think about the left hand teeing off with the right hand? I was pretty impressed by that. I like that.
I I thought it was kind of funny. The ref didn't even try to step in. It didn't even look like he was trying to stop it at that point, and
Yeah.
Angelosa wasn't even trying to block it. So I thought that was hilarious. But good move on the part of Phil Rowe. What I did think was, even if Losa was to implement a lot of grappling, like wrestling and takedowns, and keep Phil on the ground, he tends to get a little tired because I think just for his height, he's a little heavily muscular, and a lot of fights he doesn't stay very busy and he doesn't have a lot of volume. So I think that kind of is what wore him out to the third round, because he looked a little lethargic in the second, but he was still kind of winning. And once you gave Rowe the distance, he was able to exploit that. And it was a great finish on a very boring night of fights, but very happy to see Phil get that knockout because I love watching anybody get knocked out.
Yeah, I even said this on the breakdown, and I'm sure Carlos will attest. Like I've always thought Phil Rowe is talented, especially body type. Rangy striker, especially for the division, can box, can grapple. He's got all the tools. It's just sometimes he doesn't quite put it all together. And as we could see from this fight, he didn't put it together in the first 2 rounds. I don't necessarily think Angelos is all that, but at the end of the day, it's back in the win column for Phil Rowe. Did what he was supposed to do, and a nice knockout to boot. And next up, the first performance of the night bonus, Jose Ochoa getting it done in enemy territory here. UFC Atlanta obviously rooting heavily for Cody Durden, the homegrown Atlanta product here. 50Ks for Jose Ochoa, man, putting him away with that left hook. And I'll be honest, I mean, Carlos and I both saw it with the hands. Obviously, Cody Durden not necessarily on a great streak right now, not looking too hot if he can't implement the wrestling, which he wasn't able to in this matchup. He is susceptible for the chin. He has been finished in a few fights now. And Jose Ochoa looks decent, man. I think he's one to watch. Obviously, somebody who's got power in the hands, as he demonstrated on Saturday, and well-deserved 50K bonus here. I like his style. He's entertaining. Obviously training at Shooter Box, so very, very aggressive. I think his grappling's actually a little bit underrated as well. But he could be a problem here in this division. It'll be interesting to see what the UFC does with him. But 50K bonus for him nonetheless. Great knockout. And the crowd goes a little bit silent there for their boy. Carlos, what do you think of the matchup? What do you think of Jose Ochoa? And what do you think about Cody Durden moving forward?
Well, like we stated before, Ochoa kind of showed me something when he fought against Lona Kavanaugh. I thought he looked very good. Kavanaugh was able to make him look less than stellar and get the decision. But against Durden, like, he kind of showed what we thought. Like, he was going to have good striking, hard striking on the feet. And his takedown defense was a lot better than we thought. And, Cody Durden couldn't get him to the ground, couldn't control him. But unfortunately, that he was out. You could see it after that hook came. The camera kind of pointed at Cody Durden, and he was just staring off into space. And, I felt bad for that because he was in his hometown. He got the loss, and, he lost very badly in front of all of his family and friends, but he'll be back.
Yeah, absolutely. I've actually been a fan of Cody Durden, but obviously I think that this train for him is coming to an end at some point, but he's not looked good recently. We'll see who the UFC or what they decide to do with him here. Getting up there in age in the lower weight classes can always be a little bit of a shark tank, but Jose Ochoa, man, 50K bonus, getting it done with the hands. And next up, second performance of the night, Wellmaker. And I'm not going to pretend like this one was a surprise. Anybody here that sat here and thought that this one wasn't a complete layup, we all knew that this was either going to be a knockout or a decision here for Wellmaker. Obviously getting the 50K bonus for the first round knockout. There was a few moments where, Kris Moutinho was able to show his toughness, but ultimately it was the big right hand that he was able to step into here. Got the knockout of a durable, tough guy who's proven to be durable and tough so far in his UFC stint, but not tonight, not last night at least, with that knockout here. Wellmaker 50K, another bonus. He's 2-0 for bonuses, 2-0 inside the UFC. Be interesting to see what they do for him next. Hopefully they give him a real opponent and not just a punching bag, but I think everybody knew that this one was coming. Carlos, what do you think of the performance, and what do you think of Wellmaker overall?
Well, I think Cameron, although I think he was on a little bit of a losing streak that he added to. I thought he was a good opponent. Cameron is well-rounded, but I know what you mean. He should fight somebody, that's a little next level now, and I'd love to see that. I didn't think Wellmaker was going to throw that kind of heat in the first round because I was hoping that he was going to conserve himself because I was thinking Moutinho had somewhat of a beard on him, but he couldn't stand up to those shots. And I don't know if you noticed it, but the UFC was kind of making a big deal at the weigh-ins that Moutinho's back and they signed him. And I was like, why? You're feeding them to the wolves. Like, you're just happy you got a body to send to slaughter. And that's exactly what happened. So good job to Wellmaker getting it done in his home state. And I don't even know why Moutinho got resigned, to be honest with you. But good job, buddy.
Yeah, there's nothing exciting about Kris Moutinho other than the random hair color dyes, he puts in his hair. Other than that, the guy's not exciting. He's not really very good anywhere. He's just good at taking a beating, and even he didn't do that very well on Saturday. But it's kind of a weird one to me because we learned a little bit from the Cameron Simon fight for Wellmaker that, he can hit hard. Simon's obviously got wins inside the UFC. This didn't really teach us anything. I think we all knew exactly where this one was going to go and where it was heading. It's exactly what happened. So, like I said, give him a real opponent. Let's see what Wellmaker's all about. Let's see if someone can really test him. And next up, we had Ricky Simón getting the unanimous decision victory here over Cameron Smotherman. One of the things I found really funny about this fight, which I saved to actually talk about on the show with Carlos, is I don't know if Carlos heard this, but supposedly, I don't know how true this is, but Ricky Simón grabbed hold of the far hand or the far wrist of Smotherman when he was up against the fence as he was taking him down and said, "You're under arrest." And Cameron Smotherman replied, "That's racist." I thought Carlos might get a little kick out of that or find that a little bit interesting. I'll let him talk about that in a moment. But that made me go off Cameron Smotherman altogether. I'm happy that Ricky Simón was able to get back in the win column. Carlos and I both said he was going to implement his wrestling. And to be honest with you, that's 0-3 for Smotherman now. Interesting to see what the UFC does with him. He had a full camp in his last fight previously to this. Looked terrible. Came into this one. Looked terrible. So it'll be interesting to see what they do with Smotherman. But all of that woke crap, not following that. I'm happy Ricky Simón was able to get the wrestling, get it done here, and just show that, there's levels and he's able to implement his wrestling on somebody on short notice here, get the back in the win column, and look good doing it. Carlos, what do you think of the performance? What do you think of the fight? And what do you think about that statement from Cameron Smotherman, my friend?
Well, if somebody made a racist statement that was very offensive to you, there's no better place to settle it than right there in the ring. So if you were mad, you had your chance. You should have actually taken it out on him maybe in the second round, maybe in the third round, but he did wait to open up in the third round, unless that's when he said it. I don't know. Maybe that's where he got his motivation. But in the third round is where he was actually throwing some heat, which is great. That's what you're signed here to do. But he took it he was playing it safe in the first two rounds. And, I think he was looking for that Phil Rowe knockout that he had earlier. And it's hard to rely on that, because even the broadcast team was saying that Smotherman, this is his best chance to win, is the knockout. I don't know why they think he's got heavy hands or something, but or he's got one shot power. But I didn't think he was going to catch Simón in this one. And I thought Simón did like he had the right game plan, take him down, hold him down. That's kind of what he does, and do some ground and pound here and there. But in the third round, you could see where Simón was a little lackluster in the stand-up. He's got good technique. He just doesn't really know how to use it against somebody that has decent technique as well. And, but Simón's on the upside right now, so good job on that. Smotherman, like I said, if somebody's insulting you, this is the right place for it to happen. You should have let him have it.
Yeah, exactly. And like I said, I don't know if that's true or not. It's just word on the grapevine that I was reading before we got on here. But one thing I did hear Smotherman say as well is when Simon was, Ricky Simón was holding him up against the fence, the crowd was booing, and he's sitting there saying to him, like, "Oh, they're not booing me, they're booing you." And I'm sitting there like, no, they're booing both of you, because right now you also can't move from this position. So you're also 0-3 in the UFC. So all that smack talk, leave it for Kevin Holland when he gets in the win column, when he talks. It's just bullshit at the end of the day. That kind of maybe go off Cameron Smotherman. Not that I was that high on him in the first place, but hats off to Ricky Simón for getting it done. And next up, we went from bad to worse. This was probably, arguably, the worst fight on the card. This one put me to sleep if you weren't already asleep after that last fight. But we had Michael Chiesa taking on McGee, and this one was just an outright sparring match. Both guys need to be executed. I just don't understand how this fight even... I would have liked the referee to step in at some point and just say, "Hey, guys, are we actually going to fight, or what's going on here?" There's two old men, need to retire. Absolute dog shit of a fight. They didn't open up until the end, but Chiesa knew he was already up, so McGee was pressuring, swinging at air. The whole fight sucked. It was honestly the worst fight in the world. And then I had a problem with the two judges that scored it 30-27 for Chiesa, because I was sitting there like, that was not 30-27 by any means. I thought McGee won either the first, or it was either the third or the first, because all Chiesa did was run around. It was a dog shit fight, dog shit performance from both guys. They need to be cut, and then they get in the back. And don't get me wrong, they're veterans of the sport, but I think we need new blood in this sport. I think that sometimes we hold on to some of these older guys for too long. They have stinkers like this. Fans want to see action. Fans want to see two guys go at it, not two people spar. And as you can see, my boy Izzy's sitting there on the couch half asleep. Don't blame him. Carlos, what do you think of the fight? What do you think of this performance overall?
You pretty much said it. I didn't think this fight was very entertaining, but like you said, a sparring session. I do think that McGee was trying to get something going. I expected him to grind it out a little bit more, because that's the type of guy he is. He's ready to get in there, mix it up. But, he is, 41? he's got to try. Maybe his chin's not holding up as good. I don't know. But Chiesa was throwing, I think it was a left hook, right hook, one of the two, and was catching him, and it looked kind of heavy. Maybe he didn't like the way it felt. I don't know what it was, but something kept him from actually fully committing to land some shots or go for takedowns or something. I don't know what it was. And Chiesa, I like him on the commentary team. No, what is it? The post-fight team, all that stuff. But as a fighter, he's never really exciting. He always gets either a submission out of nowhere or he gets beat up like you expect. So, yeah, the fight was boring. And the way every fight was going, it was appropriate.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. This pretty much set the tone for the next few fights that are coming up, unfortunately. But the way I see it, for all of you ground and pound listeners that are familiar with one of our other recaps, I think we should probably add these two to the Macy Barber fight card that I talked about. I think we should probably have these two versus 100 Gorillas to settle it and at least give the fans what they want. I guarantee that'll be much more entertaining, more fireworks than this bullshit. And next up, like I said, more means to go on here, more controversy, more bullshit in these fights. We had Bellato taking on Paul Craig. Bellato looked decent, obviously, in the first round up until this weird, bizarre altercation here. Paul Craig throwing the up kick. Obviously, Bellato being the grounded opponent, landing the up kick. Some controversy saying that he faked it or not. I'm going to get Carlos's take in a moment, saying that he faked the up kick and that he didn't knock him out, but he thought that he was going to get a disqualification. That's the rumor and the word on the grapevine going around on socials at the minute. Again, another bullshit fight. This fight's cursed. It was obviously meant to take place about a month ago or a couple of weeks back. Paul Craig, former dog of the week, didn't end up taking place due to Bellato getting herpes. Now this fight ends in controversy. Just cut them both. I don't really care anymore. I'm done with this fight. Carlos, what do you think overall? What do you think about the controversy? Do you think he was faking it or not?
Yeah. I mean, I think he was faking it just because, yes, he did want the DQ, but he knew the way that he went down was probably not going to get him that. So he decided to, crawl back like he was crawling in a corner, getting ready to fight for his life and act like he didn't know where he was. When he got hit, he turned to the ref and was kind of threw his arms up in the air and was thinking, what's that all about? Like it's an illegal shot. I have never seen anyone coherent after getting hit and then completely lost their memory 2 seconds afterward. Uh, Maybe that's the best delayed shot I've ever seen or that's ever happened or taken place in sports. I don't know. But I think he was milking it. He was trying to get the DQ, and he ended up getting the no contest. Either way, I think he's satisfied with it. The sad part to me in this whole thing is that they actually said that they called Bellato a prospect. And that's really sad to me because he's a very sloppy fighter. He falls forward with every strike. His ground game is pretty bad. Okay, he's a black belt in jiu-jitsu. That's great. But his fighting style itself is just sloppy. And, it's a shame that the 205 weight class is this poor, that this guy is considered a prospect. They got such poor talent. And, we got to do something to make 205 great again. I don't know what we got to do. Maybe Aaron's got to get down to that weight class because I'm too old these days. But I just think that it's a shame to call Bellato a prospect. And, Scotland needs a new fighter because Paul Craig is not the guy.
Yeah. Yeah, you summed it up perfectly for me. I mean, I haven't been 205 since I was about 15, so I think that one might be out the window. But I agree with you. We definitely got to make 205 great again. I think this also just goes to show with the UFC as well sometimes that this can be a little bit of a dying product. And I think fans are a little bit frustrated at the moment with the UFC because you look at women's bantamweight, there's an absolute dog shit division. 205's dog shit. Some of the people at welterweight have been there a very long time, but then, they're even there fading, but the talent coming up aren't able to, get it done. Heavyweight as well, it can arguably be thrown in that category, but I definitely think we need some new blood in some of these divisions. And the fact that, like Carlos said, Bellato is a prospect is crazy because even when he fought Ihor Pontiero, I said to Carlos before we got on here, like, he's a journeyman. That guy was in there. He gets thrown in there to get knocked out on the first fight on pay-per-view cards. So the fact that, he's struggling to beat that guy and he's considered a prospect, it's a joke. Throw the bums in jail. And next up, we had another lackluster performance here. Both Carlos and I picking Oumar C. And obviously Menifield was able to get it done. And pretty much just the action shot here of Menifield throwing that big right hand was the story of the fight. He landed the biggest shots. I didn't disagree with the decision, if I'm being honest. I don't think Oumar C was himself. He wasn't able to get the wrestling going. In the second round, he pretty much held him up against the fence, got one takedown. Menifield got straight back up. I think it was 1-1 going into the third. And C just didn't do enough. He can't be disappointed with the performance. I think Menifield did, slightly more to deserve the decision. Pulled it off here as the underdog, and it just kind of followed that suit of the whole entire card just being a little bit questionable, a little bit strange. Oumar C is very talented on the feet with the hands. He's also very, very good with the grappling, as Carlos and I talked about on the full card breakdown. But he just didn't look like himself in there. I don't know if he was nursing an injury, but no excuses. At the end of the day, he went in there. He didn't do enough to get the win, and he's now not undefeated, and he loses in a pretty poor manner, really. But end of the day, Menifield got it done. Carlos, what do you think of the performance? What do you think of the fight?
I just don't know how good C's wrestling is, because he went for a few takedowns and couldn't get it. And then he kind of just gave up on it. Now you have all the reach, you have the height advantage. You can move in and out, make it even harder for Menifield. And for some reason, he's getting tagged with shots. And I just thought it was a terrible performance. Like I said, the 205 is struggling. C looked like someone that was going to bring up the division with the athleticism, the power, the speed, and you can't be losing to someone like Menifield. And maybe it was a fluke. Maybe he had a bet. Maybe he ate something. His stomach was upset. I don't know. Maybe he's struggling to take care of an injury, but this was a horrible performance, and he's got to find a way to bounce back from this. I just don't know why you wouldn't implement wrestling against a guy who you think can hurt him on the feet, because he gave him a lot of respect. He gave his punching a lot of respect, and that shouldn't happen when you're 6'4". You got like a 8-inch reach advantage on him, and you hit like a tank too. Totally unacceptable for C. Menifield, I think this is a big boost for him. Beating a guy like this, whether there was something actually physically wrong with C, I think it makes Menifield look pretty good, even though this fight sucked.
Yeah, absolutely. And next up, we had Cody Brundage taking on Abdul-Malik. And again, a little bit of controversy. This one just kept going. The controversy streak, the bad performances, the bad fights continued. As there was a head clash. I think it was in the third round. With Malik kind of diving in, going in to throw a shot. Unfortunately, a head clash. Cody Brundage decides to hold his head like a fucking soccer player, go down to the ground, roll around on the ground. Malik ends up finishing the fight. The referee calls it off. They go back, look at the monitor. They do a little bit of VAR for all of the people that know the soccer reference. They check the virtual, the replay. They look on the monitor. They say there was a head clash, and they end up scoring the fight. And obviously, because of the way that the 3 rounds were scored, Malik ended up winning anyway, but serves Cody Brundage right for making a big deal out of nothing, rolling around like he was just got shot. I think, to be honest with you, even if this fight continued the way that it was and it wasn't a head clash, it was probably going to end up in the same result. So I don't think it necessarily was too much controversy, but that's twice now we've seen Cody Brundage, get hit in the head or some sort of foul, and he's milked it. And like I said before, Cody Brundage just looks for a way out in there. That's why I won't really ever pick him in a fight, apart from against the Cuban Missile Crisis, Julian Marquez, but that's because both of those guys suck. But yeah, honestly, I was just surprised here that Cody Brundage went back to his old tricks. He was fairly competitive throughout the fight, but ultimately Malik ended up getting it done. Carlos and I both picked him anyway. Carlos, what do you think of the performance? What do you think of the controversy? What do you think of Brundage's performance and him rolling around on the ground like a bitch?
Well, when it comes to Abdul-Malik, this is just good experience for him, because like we talked about before, he's a good wrestler, but he doesn't really know how to fight yet. So it's good to put him in there with someone that's got a little experience, especially in the stand-up. But if Malik is able to perform correctly and do everything right, he'll get the victory. Brundage is that guy, but the problem is like, I think Brundage right in the third round, the way they were slugging it out. I think Brundage could fight like that. Not that you need to take unwanted damage, unnecessary damage, I mean, but I think he's got that grit and he can do that. For some reason, he refuses to bite down on his mouthpiece in his fights and just go for it. And that's okay. Like, you don't have to be that guy. Or he even refuses to bite down on his mouthpiece and get a takedown, and he's supposed to have very good wrestling as well. I don't know what holds him back, but what I do know is I absolutely love to see when guys get screwed trying to play the system a little bit, because when you think you're going to get that DQ, or you think you're going to get something in your favor, maybe even just a point taken away for an illegal shot, which was an unintentional headbutt, I'll say, and then you just end up getting screwed and losing the fight, nothing makes me happier. Let the refs make the call, okay? Let the ref see the foul, let them make it happen, and they'll get it in your favor. But then when you look at the replay, it looks even more like a non-issue. So for that, I love the fact that he got screwed on that. So suck it, Cody. But good job for Abdul-Malik. He did a great job. Um, he did what he was supposed to do. It wasn't flashy. It wasn't pretty. He gave a lot of respect to Brundage, which you should, because you're still learning and you're still growing. And yep, he'll get better next time and next time. But keep giving him those level of opponents and see how he does. Brundage, tough luck.
Yeah, and in the spirit of the green background here from the WWE days of DX, and seeing as Carlos brought it up, I think it's only right that the Ground and Pound podcast says we've only got 2 words for you. Suck it, Cody.
Okay.
Suck it. And this one was tough for me. I obviously dog of the week this week, Cody Garbrandt. No love, obviously not getting it done. Looking good in the first round with the boxing, and I ended up throwing the fight away in the second and third round. I just think he kind of ran out of steam. Like Carlos and I were actually talking about off air here. He was saying, it was just kind of a weird performance in terms of, Barcelos wasn't even really throwing too many kicks. He put the jab out there, and Cody Garbrandt wasn't able to sort of slip and land his own shots. He kind of burst in with flurries, and once Barcelos got the timing down and was able to implement his grappling, especially in the third, he had it all wrapped up. Hats off to Barcelos, and we're going to be back with the dog of the week. I'm not going to make any complaints here. I'm not going to make any excuses. We're going to get back in the win column with dog of the week. Cody, no love. You ain't getting no love from me, buddy. Carlos, who you got, and what do you think about this fight? What do you think about the performance? What do you think about no love, and what do you think about Barcelos overall?
Well, we thought this was a good pick for dog of the week. That was your dog. I said, yeah, I picked him too on the breakdown. I thought he would find a way to slip inside, land a hook, and just get the job done. Didn't expect it to happen in the first round, possibly the second, possibly the third. It just never happened. Cody himself is just a little shot. It's not that he's gun shy. It's not that he doesn't want to fight. I don't think he can actually just put it together, And I mean, that's fine. You hit the championship level, and unfortunately, you've been on a decline. Can't say you've never been to the top of the hill. A lot of people have never been to the top of the mountain. So, with that said, Barcelos pulling out the victory. He fought well. Good wrestling. I've never even seen Cody get taken down before, and he was able to keep Cody down. He was able to, land safely on the feet, avoid the counters. Did a great job.
Yeah, amen. I mean, I've been pretty high on Barcelos overall so far in his UFC stint. I know a lot of people were on the Peyton Talbot side. Carlos and I obviously talked about that in the full card breakdown for this event. But Barcelos is still very, very decent. And the call out of Rob Font as well. I wanted to get your take on that, Carlos. I think that'd be a good matchup. I'd like to see both of those guys go at it, all the guys in the division. Obviously, a New England guy as well. And Barcelos is obviously on a 2-fight win streak. What do you think about that potential matchup moving forward?
Well, if he keeps a very wrestle-heavy game plan, which it looks like that's what he's been doing in his last couple of fights, then yeah, he's going to have some success. Font is very tricky on the ground. He has decent wrestling, but he does have the ability to get back up, which Garbrandt should have had that same ability as well. And when he gets up, he can be effective on the feet. So I'll lean toward Barcelos because we have seen Font held down and controlled, a lot in some of his previous fights. But Font is still pretty live in that on the feet when with his boxing. So um, I would still lean a little bit more towards Barcelos, but I wouldn't mind watching that one.
Yeah, absolutely. Happy Father's Day, by the way, to all of the fathers out there. And Cody Garbrandt, Barcelos is your daddy now. And next up, we had Edmen Shahbazyan getting the unanimous decision victory over Andre Petroski. And this one, I was actually kind of a little bit happy for Edmen Shahbazyan. I thought that he did a good job. He looked like he showed a little bit of improvements. I think the old Edmen Shahbazyan of a few years back would have been kind of taken down in the first round and kind of just beaten up or submitted. But he did a good job blasting kicks from range. His striking looked good. He looked a little bit more composed in there. I think he's starting to sort of put it all together. And I say all of that and watch him lose in his next fight to fucking Cody Brundage or some bullshit. I'm not even sure if they're in the same division, but whatever. You get my point. Edmen Shahbazyan looked fantastic. I thought that he's definitely showed improvements, especially from his sort of, lackluster performances that he's had inside the UFC, especially against grapplers. I was happy to see Andre Petroski end up losing as well. I've not been a big fan of him, but I thought he looked good in there, and hats off to him for getting the decision. I thought he might have ended up getting the finish, especially with that nasty body kick that dropped Petroski in, I believe it was the second round. But hats off to him. Carlos and I both picked Edmen Shahbazyan in this one. Would have been nice to cap it off with a finish, but beggars can't be choosers. Carlos, what do you think of this fight? What do you think of this matchup? What do you think of the performance?
Thought he did a good job. I would have loved to have seen the finish, especially on Petroski. Petrovski's been in the UFC and talks about how great he is and talks about how dangerous he is, but he's yet to put that together. Basically, he's a high-level snuggler, and he couldn't even get that done against Shahbazyan. Shahbazyan looked great, able to stop takedowns, able to keep it on the feet, although Petroski didn't go for many takedowns, which I don't understand why if your stand-up isn't that good anyway. And I just love watching Petroski getting punched to the body with those kicks. I thought it was beautiful. So great job, Shahbazyan. You put the smile on my face, and hopefully that cardio keeps up in the later rounds in the future.
Yep. And that brought us to the co-main event. And if you haven't already, hit that like and subscribe button for your boys here on the Ground and Pound podcast as we talk about Rowe's Namajunas getting the unanimous decision victory here over Miranda Maverick. And one thing that is for sure, in that third round, I think Maverick probably blew out her knee. She got up limping. I'm not sure if it was actually the left hook that really, she did get hit by the left hook, but I don't think that was what really dropped her. She looked like she hyperextended the knee there, and that was all she wrote. I thought it was a very close fight. I actually thought it was 1-1 going into the third, but some of the judges completely disagree with me, so what the fuck do I know? Some judges scored it 30-27 for Rose, and ultimately she gets it done. Thug Rose getting it done with the striking, obviously implementing some of the grappling. I thought that second round transition where we thought that, she was going to be able to get the submission, and then both ladies were able to scramble. Maverick was able to almost get the head and arm choke. I thought that was a pretty nice sequence. But unfortunately for Maverick, she wasn't able to get it done. Hats off to Carlos for picking Thug Rose. I don't always trust Rose in a lot of fights. I said that on my full card breakdown prediction, but hats off to Rose for getting it done. I'm the best. Carlos, what do you think of the fight overall?
I how do I say this? Well, first you said you thought it was 1-1 going into the third. I thought it was 2-1 Rose, so I thought that was okay. A 30-27, that's a little rough because I thought Maverick won the last one. But the fight went the way that I thought it would. I thought Rose would do most of her best work on the feet. She did get a couple of takedowns that she went for here and there in between, but I thought that's what is, what would be her key to victory, is keeping it up and beating her up on the feet. Basically, I thought Maverick was going to be, she's not very skilled, so she comes in kind of blind. So I figured Rose would be able to exploit that, and she did. In the later round, the round 3, she was able to pressure her and disrupt a lot of her rhythm. And could be the fact that Rose was a little tired or maybe a little fatigued. There's something about Rose. I don't know if she loses focus lately or what, but I don't trust her either in a lot of these fights that I pick her. I just pick her because I go, she should win here or there. But yeah, I told you, even in my parlay, I didn't even bet her. I bet that Maverick was going to do it because I figured sometimes some stronger grapplers tend to give Rose a hard time, but Maverick is not a traditional wrestler, so that's the issue. Is I should have thought of that first. So fuck me, right? That's what I did it to myself, and I won't do that again. Next time, Rose, I got you.
And that brought us all the way to the main event here with Kamaru, the Nigerian snuggler. I'm just playing. Usman getting it done here against Joaquin Buckley. Fight of the night. Both guys taking home 50K bonuses. And Joaquin Buckley's streak here at welterweight ends. And I was happy to see Kamaru Usman get the victory. And I got to give Carlos props. Got to give credit where credit's due here on the Ground and Pound podcast. Carlos did say as a 2-1 underdog that Kamaru Usman was able to get it done with the wrestling. And boy, was he right. For those of you that pay attention to the full card breakdowns, if you're a bettor, sometimes it pays to listen. And obviously, Carlos there getting the unanimous decision victory for Usman. Was happy to see it exactly how Carlos saw it with the wrestling. Buckley was able to put up a fight in round 5. Too little, too late. I'm a big fan of Buckley. I think that he's good for the sport in terms of his athleticism, his smack talk. He's fairly funny in some of the stuff that he comes out with, but the better fighter, the more experienced fighter, and the guy that's been on top of the mountain got it done and showed his experience and showed that this losing streak he's been on, it's been against some of the higher level guys in the division, Hamzat, Leon Edwards. No shame in losing to those guys. Back in the win column for Usman. And Carlos, what do you think overall of the pick, the fight? Obviously, it went exactly how you said, but anything that you want to add to this fight overall?
I mean, I just think that Buckley's like I said, like you said, he's athletic, he's strong, he's powerful, he's explosive. He's got all the abilities to be a good fighter. You know, maybe not a good champion unless he works on a few things, but he's got a ability to be a good, entertaining fighter. You know, you're gonna get your money's worth once he's in there. There's a lot of gaps that he's got to fill when it comes to the grappling part, because I know he didn't want any part of Stephen Thompson on the feet, but he had no ability to take him down, so he had to go for the Hail Mary. Usman, he has no ability to stop Usman from taking him down. Luckily, in the 3rd round, and if you look at it, Usman's not trying to hurry, like, you know, to really strong get those takedowns. He's just using the technique and a little bit of pressure, and Buckley was able to break free on a couple of them. I think it was just to keep Buckley working, and you know, that's going to be a little confidence. If that happened in the 1st or 2nd round, I'm sure Buckley would have probably been a little better. But you know, you get slippery in the later rounds. You get a little fatigued. You're getting older, and Buckley was able to separate and start landing some shots. And even the shots that he landed, Usman wasn't in any trouble. So I just assumed Usman would be able to dominate, win the early rounds, keep himself safe, and get the decision. And thank God he did. I'm glad to see he's back in the win column.
Yep, absolutely. It's always a good division with Kamaru at the top. He's obviously a very, very credentialed fighter, well-rounded, and both guys taking home a bonus here, fight of the night, on what was one of the weirdest cards that I've seen in a long time. I'm sure Carlos can attest, and as we've broken it all down, I'm sure you can agree. But one thing is for sure, certain, coming soon here on the channel, we have the full card breakdown here for Jamal Hill taking on Khalil Roundtree over in Thailand. I'm hoping to get my revenge. Carlos killed me this weekend or last week in the picks. Hopefully I can get some revenge, get back in the win column there. And the PFL semifinals is also going to take place this week. Full card breakdown coming to you here on the Ground and Pound podcast. And before I wrap things up, Carlos, do you want to do any gloating before we wrap things up?
I don't need to gloat. We got a whole year of picks coming up, and I can fall off too. I could turn into Buckley at any time and just lose it. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to say I hope you guys enjoy the content. I hope you remember to like and subscribe. Got plenty of content coming up, and check it out.
Yeah, absolutely. See that, guys? Humble in victory and in defeat. What a guy. One guy we can always rely on, apart from Cody Brundage. He can suck it. We'll catch you guys in the next one. Peace.
Peace.